Welcome to the High Side Podcast. I'm here with Josh Adams, and we're just going to go straight into it. Hopefully, this time we don't have to do another take. HAAS factory team. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Josh. I didn't even know HAAS was still around. At least at the capacity I'm about to find out. I thought they were just there as a car. But they're switching manufacturers, and I guess it's going to be backed by Hendrick, from what I've heard.
Yeah, to be fair, they are kind of just there. I don't think we've heard Cole Custer's name all season except for like the last couple of laps at Daytona a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I figured he was just sponsored by them and then running off of some kind of a satellite team to what Haas used to be or something. But I guess it's good to see that at least half that branch is still here. They're around, and I guess it's going to be. Is it just one car?
Yeah, so they're going back to how it was kind of originally ran before Tony Stewart took half of it. Of course they ending the relationship with Ford that Tony Stewart helped them with, and they're going to go back to Chevrolet. And prior to Tony Stewart and Gene Haas switching to Ford, they were with Chevy and also backed by Hendrick Motorsports engine shop. So that's going to be the deal again. They're going to be supported by the Hendrick engine shop. They're going to continue to have the same stable of drivers and amount of cars next season. One in the Cup Series and two in what's going to be the NASCAR O'Reilly's series in 2026 with Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed, and then of course Cole Custer in the Cup Series. They keep all the same numbers and everything, from what I understand. So basically, nothing's changing roster wise or anything. They're just gonna look different.
So this is going to be equivalent to, say, like a Penske Wood Brothers kind of thing.
I would say so. Probably just not. When we, for the most part, assume that Josh Berry is driving a fourth Penske car. When those alliances happen, I think that's going to be a little bit further apart than something like that. They're going to have like the same. They're going to have the engine shop support, but it's going to be up to to Haas to still make them go fast and everything. So people might think so, but Cole Custer is not going to be out there running the same car that Kyle Larson is. So they're still going to have to make them go fast and do their all their own research and stuff. But it's going to be a big backing to get them started, at least with the partnership again with the new manufacturer.
Did when they were originally in the position with Chevy and Hendrick, how was their performance in comparison to whenever they switched over to Ford?
It really wasn't even close. They had just, I think they just had like the one car, but they were really never relevant with Gene Haas just doing it. And it wasn't until Tony Stewart came along where they had him and Newman and then grew into Kevin Harvick and so on. So, but they were never a team that we figured would ever run up front, other than tracks like Daytona and Talladega back in the day.
Do you feel that this is pretty much what's going to end up in the current state that they're in, or do you feel like the Hendrick backing and the fact that Custer is usually successful in the O'Reilly series, is it going to be positive?
I would think so. Especially the Cup side with the Gen 7 car, just because as we know, a lot of times this car seems to be a lot closer together from week to week, from the front of the field to the midfield or even the back. So I think a partnership like that will be a good start for him. At least it, I would think, would help improve some of the performance, at least on the Cup side. But I think just by default, they will be just a little bit closer than they would be, or a lot closer than they would be if they just completely started over with really nothing.
Well, it's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on. I don't have a large grasp on everything that happens inside the sport, so usually this show is an opportunity for me to get caught up on everything too. So, given the fact that Custer's still down there running around in a HAAS equipment, it'll be nice to see what they're capable of doing with that Hendrick backing. I would imagine it's going to be somewhat similar to what the 9 has down in that series. They still run the 9 down there, don't they?
HAAS?
No, Hendrick.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, it's kind of Hendrick runs the 17. When they make their one-off starts. But yeah, it'll probably be something similar to that. Maybe even, like I said before, just a little bit off, because at the end of the day, they're not going to get the exact stuff that Hendrick is putting out. They got to still work on their own stuff. But I think their best chance to be really successful is probably with Creed and Mayer in the lower series, at least at the start.
All right. Well, I wanted to take a quick glance over at what happened with Christopher Bell in the Cup race at Worldwide Tech, or Gateway, if you know it that way. He was a bit upset with his team after the finish of that race, understandably. I was reading up some comments on that whole scenario. It looks like it's Adam Stevens, correct? The previous crew chief for Kyle Busch.
Correct.
So, from my understanding, at least from other fans' perspectives, Adam Stevens likes to pit his cars last. He wants to put his drivers on offense. That does not seem to work in this car for obvious reasons. I mean, we watch it on Sunday all the time. These cars just cannot pass because of aerodynamics. At least somebody that you're around that has matching equipment. Granted, if you're just significantly faster than the guy in front of you, you're getting around them. But if it's an even playing field, it's impossible to pass in these things. So it seems to me that Christopher Bell is just upset that he's having to work. I mean, he's at the front of the field already. He finished 7th. The 6 cars in front of him aren't like worse than he is. So I would imagine that it's probably pretty infuriating to just having to always be put on offense in that scenario.
Yeah, and especially the way he started the season, winning 3 out of 4 races, and they were probably thinking, they would maybe shoot for 7 or 8 or something, maybe even by this time. But over the past several weeks, he's seen his teammates Hamlin and Briscoe winning races and running up front too, and Christopher Bell expects that to be his team. Like, obviously, his teammates are going to run just as good as him, but there are going to be days that they'll run better, or the strategy call will just be better. But that's good for him though. Expecting more. He understands that he's capable of winning every single week he gets in the race car, and as a fan, you like to see that.
Yeah, I like the fact that it really shows the complexity there. How when you listen to the team's side of the radio, and how I mean, I'm not in their heads, but I can only assume based off of what I heard, they were proud of that effort, proud of that result, considering the day they had. And on the other side of that, Bell did not accept that whatsoever. He knows that team is capable of much more and did not accept losing that race. So that's something that's also nice to hear. Kind of keeping your team in check.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
sure.
People complained about Kyle Busch for years because he was crybaby or whatever, upset that he got second place, whatever. That's a man that doesn't accept anything other than a checkered flag,
Yeah,
and that's how it should be.
Yeah, you love confidence in any sport, and when you have as much confidence as he does in auto racing, when really it doesn't matter how good you are, like anything can happen to inflict punishment or something on your day in motorsports, and he expects to go out there and run for the win in every race. And it's funny that he said we're just underperforming, and we're 27 races in. He's got 9 top 5s, 15 top 10s, 3 wins, and he's like 4th in playoff points right now. So he's had a great year, and he just expects more.
Yeah. And I would also like to point out that a lot of the drivers that you and I have watched for over the last like 15 or so years, Kyle Busch being an example, probably even Brad Keselowski being an example. You see the flipping point where they did not accept anything below first place.
Oh yeah.
Versus now, they're there to make sure their family has a structure for whenever they're done with the sport.
Yeah.
What do we got here? Oh, Christopher. Yeah. Oh yeah, his teammate Hamlin. What else did we needed to cover? I know we did HAAS, Bell. We're gonna do Hamlin. What was the other one?
Zilich.
Zilich. All right, well, let's talk about Zilich real quick before we talk about the finish of the Cup race. Connor Zilich. It's funny. I've noticed that dude is an accident waiting to happen. It seems like constantly getting either injured or or getting in the headlines in some form or fashion outside of winning. And then this week he almost like runs over a camera guy. So
yeah, they put those camera guys out there in almost harm's way, because you never know exactly how those guys are gonna do their post race, and they're just right there with a camera that probably weighs about as much as them. Probably pretty hard to jump out of the way with the race car coming at you. That's how you get the best shots in sports, though. You gotta be in there.
I'm waiting on when somebody gets just completely obliterated by these cars. Get losing them in the smoke or whatever, just getting tail whipped. Obviously, don't want anyone to get hurt, but it would be kind of humorous to see somebody just go flying across the surface real quick and then get back up and start filming again.
Yeah, what happened. There's somebody that is so dedicated to the the production that they'd probably brush it off as nothing.
Has there been a driver that had come up and taken the camera and just drove around? That'd be a hell of a perspective.
Yeah, it would be. They run around with you see it all the time in the pits. They run around with a pretty long wire. It'd be interesting to see how far around the track one of those guys could get before they pull the plug. But I think we've seen that in like NFL celebrations, and it's probably even happened in like the NBA. I know we've seen it in like the WWE, like Chris Jericho taking the TV camera and filming the fans or himself or something. It would be pretty cool one day if a driver took one of them cameras and saw how far they could get with it. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
have fun
put
with
that one out there on X or something.
Yes, definitely. Maybe we can get a Juicy Spider Studios to create some kind of mock-up of what that would look like.
That'd be really cool.
But yeah, Connor Zilich, man, he just at this point, I mean, an unstoppable force in that series. I mean, he looks like a Cup driver has just come down there, if not worse.
Oh yeah, and the crazy thing about him, um, we've talked about him obviously just about every week now because ever since his injury race at Talladega, the guy hasn't finished outside the top five. Yeah, it's been 13 races. Of course, he missed one of them, but well, the 13 races were him, and he technically missed part of one with Daytona, but he's won 7 out of the last 8 races and 8 out of the last 11, which is insane. No matter the series, you can say probably all you want, like it's just the Xfinity series and whatever. There's not as much competition as there is in Cup, but I think doing anything as just basically perfect as he's done in NASCAR is basically out of this world. Like I know we've seen Kyle Busch come down and just dominate races in trucks or Xfinity, and we basically expected him to win every single race he ran if it wasn't Cup. And I think nowadays we're basically just expecting Connor Zilisch to win in the Xfinity series. And the crazy thing about it is, he has like 40 career starts, 30 career starts or something in the Xfinity series all time. 29 career starts in the Xfinity series, and he's already won 10 races, including his very first debut last year, Watkins Glen, at 18 years old.
Insane.
Crazy
I mean,
stuff.
I can't even fathom. So here's what I like about Zilisch, and like I said, I don't really pay attention to that series. I don't have the ability to watch all these Cup races because of work. The most I can do is just follow up on X or social media of some sort and see what happened. But what I like about Zilisch in comparison to other drivers that I've noticed watching the sport, as a matter of fact, there's only one driver that I know of off the top of my head that did succeed after getting an injury, and that was Brad Keselowski. And maybe that's why I was a fan of him from the start of, or from 2011 when he got that injury in Road America. But Zilisch, after getting injured, started popping off. I mean, you see guys like Alex Bowman or Chase Elliott that whenever they got injured, they had a slump. And maybe you can remind me of this. I actually don't remember, but I think even Denny Hamlin, after his back injury, had a bit of a slump. The only other driver I can really imagine, or that I can think of, is Kyle Busch going and winning that title that year.
Yeah, that's I would say probably about the only one I can think of too. I mean, we've seen guys, like Gordon had it was pretty noted throughout a lot of Gordon's career that he had a bad back, and I think he had some races where he had some incidents that it certainly didn't help some of the incidents he got in, but we saw Casey Kane get in a real bad wreck at New Hampshire one year, and a lot of people think he wasn't the same since. Like I think it's been widely known that kind of how Dale Earnhardt Jr. ended his career, he wasn't the same after kind of the one concussion that kind of just sped up the process of his retirement. So there's been a lot of guys that have been certainly affected by just random different things, and Connor Zilisch just might be like a Tron or something. He just puts on a new piece and he's perfectly good to go.
Yeah, big respect for that dude. I really hope that this tear that he's on doesn't stop with the series that he's in, because we've seen drivers go on an absolute wreck in that division just to come up to Cup and with lack of a better term, be a fart in a breeze. in the Cup
Yeah.
Series.
See, it's certainly going to be more difficult for him, when he does go full-time Cup next year. But I don't think any of us are going to be surprised if he goes and wins one race. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins one for sure, but I also don't think I'd be surprised if he wins at least two. Will he go and win 8 like he's doing the Xfinity Series? I think all of us are going to agree no. But I think he's going to be a force very quickly, and I hope we're right about that. I think a good example would be like Ty Gibbs. That guy and the Joe Gibbs stuff in Xfinity. He was a force to win every race, and he never even went on a 8 race run like Connor Zilic has, and now in Cup he's like kind of just now getting to where it looks like he might be able to win one here pretty soon.
Yeah, because I think of other guys as well, like Brad, Chase Elliott. There's another one I was just thinking of, and the name slipped. William Byron, like these guys who were very successful down in the Xfinity Series, even the Truck Series, had come up into the Cup division. And while all 3 of those drivers I mentioned are now successful drivers, it took them a minute to find that success. I think Chase Elliott didn't win a single race in his first 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have been even 3. He had a lot of close races and just like kept losing them some different way, and then he won that first one at Watkins Glen, and he was just kind of like one of them ones that they always say when a driver wins one, they feel like they'll start winning multiple, and that's kind of what Chase Elliott was able to do after he won his first one.
Yeah, I think it took William Byron a minute as well. And William Byron, I think we were expecting to really kind of the same Connor Zilic kind of energy to come up into the Cup Series and just start destroying everybody, but it took him a minute to find footing. Now he's probably one of the most consistent drivers right now, but by no means the most winning driver.
Yeah, I think with William, if there's any driver that you would poll like 100 people about like who they think their final forward is going to be, William Byron is probably the name that would pop up more than probably more than anybody else, in my opinion, just because he is so consistent.
Yeah, it's excellent, consistent, almost alien consistent. I mean, he looks like Jimmy Johnson at times.
Yeah,
with his consistency.
Yeah, and real quick back to, we were just talking about like complete dominance in the Xfinity Series. Connor Zilic has the 8 wins, maybe 7, 8 wins, whatever the number is. I just clicked off of it, but I went and looked at Kyle Busch, and I'm not going to click in to see what like his greatest runs were, but we saw him win double-digit races in the Xfinity Series 4 different times. He's won twice 10 races, one time 12 races, and one time 13 races in a season. So it's definitely not unheard of. I think we probably expect Zilic at this point to get that 10-win season. I would be kind of surprised if he didn't. But it'd be kind of cool if he was able to just all of a sudden get up to that number 13 number, because I'm pretty sure that was a record.
It's not far from reality, to be honest. I mean, he's won everything for a while now, so outside of Shane Van Gisbergen race that I can think of, so he may. How many races are left?
Yeah, they've got 7 races left, so their playoffs are going to start at that might not have been. Yeah, they've got 7 races left. Their playoffs are going to start at Bristol this weekend, I believe.
Dude, it's hilarious looking at this. I don't know if the viewers will be able to see what we're seeing after post edit, but it's funny to see like how different everything was at the first half of the season. There's so many different names, and then all of a sudden, Connor,
Yeah.
Connor, 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 Connor.
Yeah, one name you see quite a bit in that first half is Justin Allgaier, Connor's teammate, and we haven't seen Justin Allgaier since the week after Memorial Day when he won at Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allgaier is very consistent, but yeah, I think we would probably both agree that he's going to be the guy that will have to take it to Zilich at Phoenix, and I think Denny Hamlin talked about it on Actions Detrimental that I think if he was to look at the final race for the Xfinity Series, that he thinks Allgaier is probably the guy because Allgaier's been to that track multiple times for the championship race. He's won it once, and Allgaier runs really good on that type of track. So it'll be interesting to see if Zilich is able to take it to him at Phoenix.
I hope
And
so. Nothing against Allgaier. Allgaier's a great dude, but when somebody performs like this crappy playoff system should not keep them from going and winning the title. I think this should be 100% Connor's year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one other thing of note while we're on this topic, Connor Zilich did win the regular season championship for the Xfinity Series, so he goes in with obviously the most playoff points because he won the most races, but he also gets the bonus for the win. And also, Junior Motorsports hit a team record 16th win at Gateway with Connor Zilich's most recent win. They had never won 16 races before.
Oh. Well, hopefully they just see. I just want them to win the title. I think a regular season title should automatically lock his ass into the Final Four, in my opinion. At least if we're going to keep this format.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the schedule being a little bit shorter, basically a whole round shorter in the Xfinity Series, then Cup have a little bit more incentive to go out and win the regular season.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll jump over to Cup now and talk about the villain himself, Denny Hamlin. He's I mean, we could say this every year about Denny Hamlin, but it's looking, I don't know, looks more likely like a Hamlin kind of year, at least as of now.
Yeah, it's I think I've even said it on this podcast that I think he's been in a lot of aspects at the top of his game this season, and kind of like the top of his prime. Like I feel like he's obviously had better seasons in terms of maybe like amount of wins or consistency, but I don't think right now there's a driver that I would really put over him as the championship favorite. Just kind of the way he's it was a while since he had won about 7 or 8 races ago at Dover, but Denny Hamlin just shows up, and he doesn't always end up with the best luck in the playoffs and everything, but as you said, it just kind of looks like it might be his time. He's been creeping up about once a month, and Toyota as a whole looks really good right now. So there's also a lot of good tracks for him at the back end of the playoffs.
It's a fun part of his career to watch, or a bittersweet part of his career to watch, because he's been around for as long as I remember. I've been watching the sport, and for a long time, he's always seemed to have that chip on his shoulder for whatever reason it may have been. Teammates or rivalries out there, or not being able to actually close out a title. But I think we're seeing a point of Denny Hamlin where he does not give a shit about a championship. He's here to make some noise before he leaves, and I think that's really fun to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's and in my opinion, he's one of the kind of handful of, like just one of the last kind of great guys to watch. He's always, always has the kind of like the cool factor going on after he, wins a race. He doesn't let the booze get to him. He kind of like feeds off of the fans and makes it kind of like the term sports entertainment gets brought around a lot these days in the Cup Series, and it's always great when he just kind of feeds off what the crowd's giving him after a race, like this weekend when they asked him about the booze or whatever and in the crowd after he won, and he's just like, yeah, bring it on. He's like, I want all the booze, something like that. Like you said, he's winning races still. He's one race away from a milestone, 60. I think we'd expect him to get that before this season ends. And that 60th win is probably almost going to be necessary to make it to the championship 4, or even to obviously win the championship. So, I would expect him to get 60 and maybe even 61 or more.
I feel like he was saying something about an interview or something like that right after the race. He's got about 70 more races left on his pattern. And out of those 70, I would definitely expect him to at least hit 65.
Yeah.
Or 70 wins if that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of the rate he's on now. He's won, 5 races this season, and I don't think, we see any reason that, next year it would change. But, like you said, kind of like a pattern. He's, the last 4 years he's been 5-3-3-2, and then even before that 2-7-6. So he's averaging about 3 wins a season, since about 2019 or so. So, he hangs around for, at least 2 more years. After this year, he can probably definitely hit that 70 number at least.
Yeah, it's this is probably what? How many drivers are left from the era that we watched when we started watching?
Well, from that 2005, there's just when he came in, it's like Kyle Busch. There's probably somebody else, but like I would have to look at the roster at this point to even know. I mean, like pretty much everybody from when Denny Hamlin started is gone. Like except for Kyle Busch and maybe a couple others. But
pull up a 2005 point standing roster. See if we can recognize any names in there that are still around.
Yeah, see how far that goes back. That's the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series.
Wow.
Maybe this will do. Yeah, there's a lot of scrolling involved, but you see like
I think these are all the teams right there.
Like even just this top 10 of drivers like Stewart, Biffle, Wallace, Johnson, Kurt Busch, Martin, Mayfield, Edwards, Kenseth, Newman. None of those guys are in the Cup Series anymore.
That's insane.
We saw Biffle do a couple one-off races within the last few years. Jimmy Johnson has done his one-off races. Kurt Busch got forced out. Tony Stewart's running drag racing now.
I guess we do still technically have Johnson every now and then.
Yeah, technically. I think he's made it known that he's kind of more just trying to make the most of the ownership role at this point.
Kyle Busch.
Hendrick Motorsports completely different. Kyle Busch is the only one still around from there. Denny Hamlin still the only one from Joe Gibbs. Yeah, I mean, Dave Blaney was in the Cup Series in 05, and now his son has won 15 Cup races.
Damn.
Jeff Burton commentates on TV. Kevin Harvick commentates on TV.
Well, there's Jeff Green.
Yeah, Ken Schrader has a podcast. We've seen Casey Mears do a couple of races recently. Jamie McMurray's on TV. Casey Kane runs a lot of dirt races. We saw him do one race this season. Jeff Green, he's big into iRacing these days. Tony Raines, that's a name that's the backup spotter for Ryan Preece. Dale Jarrett's on TV. We see Mark Martin a lot these days on social media. I don't think we've seen Matt Kenseth really surface outside of a couple times. He's kind of involved with Legacy Motor Club these days. And then, we just saw Carl Edwards come back kind of into the spotlight a few weeks ago. So, as far as driving full time, it's Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch. Just from the 2005 roster.
Well, let's take a final look here at the point standings, and then we'll close it out. But right now, Denny Hamlin is number one on the board, right by Chase Briscoe. So two Gibbs teammates. Larson, he just tried to wipe out Blaney.
Yeah.
That didn't work out too well, so Blaney still sits fifth.
Yeah, and then you did have Chase Elliott wipe out Ryan or Josh Berry.
Who is already down.
Josh Berry, and I think the way I see it, Josh Berry and Alex Bowman have to win. I think I said before we went on air that Shane has to win too, which I kind of still think he does. 15 points is definitely possible. Anything can happen at Bristol, but I don't know if he's one that we would expect to go up and get points in both stages. But where do you think, in terms of the plus number, is kind of the guys that should go in feeling pretty safe at Bristol?
Safe? I'd say anybody above Ross.
Yeah. I think Chase Elliott and Joey Logano will probably maybe be sweating the first stage, but if they go in and get solid points, and the guys below them don't, especially Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's a guy that just for whatever reason, when it's time to step up, he just kind of steps up for whatever reason. Goodyear's announced they're bringing a softer tire to Bristol this weekend.
Oh, really?
But I also do know that I think it's supposed to be pretty cool in Bristol this weekend. So we've seen what happens with some of them cooler races. The tires wear out really fast, and that's kind of what happened that one year, a couple of years ago, that they were pitting it seemed like every 30 laps at Bristol. So Just that factor alone could make even Ryan Blaney not feel safe at plus 42. But I would say everybody, Christopher Bell up, are probably feeling pretty good. And like I said, I think Chase and Joey will feel pretty good if they can be successful in stage 1.
Yeah, I like this one right here. I didn't expect to see Bubba Wallace in the top 5.
Yeah, I
At this
think
point.
Bubba's a guy that most people probably had getting eliminated in the first round, being one of the first 4 out, and going and putting himself 50 above, regardless of what's happened to some guys below him, is very impressive for him. He's kind of done it quietly too. Like, I think he just kind of feeds off the hate, and he's definitely shown up later in this season when it counts.
Even this guy, he's been quiet all year. Tyler Reddick.
We saw Tyler Reddick have a lot of speed and almost win Darlington to transfer through in the first race. Couldn't quite get it done, but Reddick is another guy that we would probably expect to run pretty good Saturday night.
So, a couple surprises up here in the top half of the chase. Not super surprised to see who's in the elimination stack right now.
I don't think anybody would have been surprised at all if you were to tell them that those would be the first 4 out going in. You would maybe think to replace Alex Bowman with Cindric or like Chastain or something, but Alex Bowman, he's kind of been in this situation all season, just been playing catch up all season, and they've put themselves in position to be playing catch up again with their backs up against the wall going into Bristol. You don't want to go into Bristol with your back against the wall. It's not a good place to have to go and try and have a good run, because it's just like Daytona or Talladega. Anything can happen to you at Bristol.
Yeah, and probably I probably wouldn't expect much, but you also don't want to forget about Josh Berry, because he did have that breakout win. I think it was at Las Vegas this year. So
yeah, and short track guy. You would think that being in a Penske car that they're gonna give him what he needs. It'll be up to him to go and get it done. And then one other note about Alex Bowman, Hendrick Motorsports, they know that they're kind of in do or die with Alex Bowman. They've went and they're taking, I think it was 3 crew members from the 77 Ahosavar to put on the 48 this weekend at Bristol to hopefully mitigate some of the pit road issues they've been having over the past few weeks.
Yeah. So it'll be good to watch. I'm excited. Hopefully I can actually watch this one. I think we're off on Saturday night from our league races, so, and I don't work that night, so I'll be able to actually tune in on this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because it'll either be a good race or it'll be a bad race. There's really no in between these days. We'll hope for a good race.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Is there anything else you wanted to add in here, Josh?
Yeah, who do you think wins?
Wins at Bristol?
Yep.
If the tire game is the deal, I'm going with Hamlin.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. But just to be different from you, I'll kind of the same deal. Give it to a veteran, and I'll go Joey Logano. He always makes the most of the playoffs.
Hopefully a sneak out of Brad Keselowski and go get him one. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in and listening to us blabber for a little while. We're going to jump out of here and see you again here in probably a couple weeks. Have a good one, guys. Check us out on socials. Check description. Thumbs up. All that good stuff. Peace.